Well, welcome back to the lab, and I'm here with an update. What the heck happened to my hand? Well, you can see I got a rubber glove on my brace here. Well, sprained my wrist. And how did I do that? I was mountain biking down a trail here in Colorado at Maryland Mountain Trail System called Ore Bucket, and it's a double red, so about as steep as a trail as I've ever seen here in Colorado, maybe with a couple of exceptions up in Steamboat. And it was wet. There was plenty of people on the trail, so it wasn't too wet, but what happened was my rear wheel dislodged a rock. That rock rolled down in front of my front wheel, and when my front wheel hit that, it just like the timing was perfect. The rock stopped, my wheel hit it, over the handlebar I went. It was a very slow speed event, but the trail being so steep, I felt quite a long way. You put my hands out to save myself, just instinctively, and the second I got up, I was like, oh no, this is bad, and my hands started to swell, so I nursed my way back to the car. That happened on Saturday. As of filming, this is now Wednesday. I went to the doctor yesterday, and unfortunately it's just a sprain. But it hurts like crazy. My hands are really swollen, and what sent me to the doctor was extreme numbing, which I never experienced before. I, of course, as a mountain biker and a chef, have had to work injured quite a bit. So I want to go over some of my prep that I've got going on, show you the adjustments I make for being injured, and then talk about the realities of being a chef and having to work through injury, because the work doesn't stop just because you're not feeling well. Let's get started. I know you can't see this, but what I basically do when I write my menus, I just write concepts, and then I just know charcuterie, just off the top of my head, all the ingredients I need. Pizza bar, I kind of know all the ingredients I need off the top of my head. And then what I do is write just an ingredient list, but I don't write the amounts because I kind of have a feel for how much I need of each. So I don't need to know that, oh, hey, I need 6 pounds of potatoes. I just kind of just know off the top of my head. That's the good part about being a one-man show, is that you don't necessarily have to show your work for your partners and fellow chefs to know what's going on. Anyway, so I did all my grocery shopping yesterday, majority of my grocery shopping yesterday, and things are just taking a lot longer. Here I've got some Brussels sprouts. When I do my Brussels sprouts, what I like to do is cut off the root end, and I like to cut them in half, and then I peel off the leathery outsides. It takes a while. I know some people who, they cut off the root end, they cut it in half, they just kind of shake them around and just pick them out. That's not a bad way to do it, but I find that you end up with kind of leathery leaves. I don't like the loose leaves bouncing around in there because I'm going to blanch and shock these, and then they're going to get roasted in that Monogram pizza oven. So I like a little bit more of a cleaner environment, particularly just because it's only for 10 people. This is a lot. I don't know if I'll need this much, but I went ahead and bought a bunch because they look so good, nice and fresh. We're doing bread pudding on Friday, so I'm going to cut my bread. I've got some carrot prep here just for garnish. And then I have a bus tub here with a couple of ingredients. I got to show you, the biggest thing is when I pick stuff up, it puts pressure down on my wrist, and it's really sore on the inside there. So when I'm picking up a bus tub, I've got to do this like awkward, kind of straight up and down. This is a really important adjustment as opposed to the normal coming in like this. And quite frankly, this is rather uncomfortable, but I'm just dealing with it. So talking about the realities of working injured, having been in the industry for 32 years, and also being a mountain biker, grabbing my vegetable peeler, also being a mountain biker and outdoor enthusiast, it's bound to happen where you make a mistake on the trail, you make a mistake skiing. I skied, went to clear a double skiing one time, came up short, threw my back out. Another time I was mountain biking, separated my shoulder. Another time I just kind of overdid it with my knees, ended up having to have meniscus surgery, and it's bound to happen where you end up having to go work injured, but you can't stop moving. The show does not stop. So a couple things I'm doing to make adjustments here is I take my brace off, wash my hands, put my brace back on, and then I've been washing this. I've tried putting a glove over it, as you saw at the beginning of the video. It doesn't work great. I wish it worked a little better, but that's the reality. So I'm gonna wrap up some equipment too. When I do in-home cooking classes, I like to have everything wrapped up after it's washed very tightly for two reasons. One, so it doesn't jiggle around in the back of my chef mobile, and then also just is best practice that I'm showing up with clean equipment, cutting boards, pans, pots, much easier to transport. So as you can see here, I'm just trying to lay off my left wrist. So years ago I worked in a restaurant, country club. It was my first job out of culinary school. And the chef, it was one of these things where it was kind of an apprenticeship deal, and the chef was some hotshot chef that they brought in from Manhattan, who was kind of on his way to being a celebrity chef. And he, of course, as most chefs do when they're at the top of their game, think very highly of themselves, to the point where he said, on your days off, I don't want you doing anything. And I'm like, you don't control me, dude. Like, it's my day off. I'm gonna go do whatever the heck I want. Well, quite frankly, I had my days off. I was a young man, I was 19, 20. I didn't have much going on. I wasn't, this was in rural Long Island, and I wasn't mountain biking yet, and on my days off, I didn't have any money, so I kind of didn't do anything on my days off. That was fine, but one time I went sledding with a bunch of my coworkers, and I kind of threw my back out. And he was so mad at me for coming into work injured, or coming into work, let's say, hungover. And that was a little frustrating. But when I became a chef, I could kind of share his perspective. Although I certainly didn't tell my staff not to go and have fun or do something on their day off. I shared his perspective from the standpoint that I need people to show up to work and be ready to go. Top-notch performance. Working in a restaurant is extremely physical. The problem with showing up to work with an injury is that it changes the pace at which you can work. So I find that even with sprained wrist or limping on my knee, it slows me down 20, 30, 40%. So everything takes longer, and I'm more tired at the end of the day. So I'm not as focused. It can be frustrating. This is an interesting recipe. We're making a cranberry chutney with horseradish and sour cream. And it calls for the frozen cranberries, like the fresh frozen, but they're not available because this is May, and apparently grocery stores don't carry them, even in the frozen fruit area. So I'm going to make it with dry cranberries. I'm going to reconstitute this with some orange liqueur and some water, and then mix those in with some horseradish, some diced shallots, maybe some garlic, some chopped parsley, and that we're going to serve with sous vide beef tenderloin. So kind of fun. And then I'm going to make a blue cheese sauce as well, and then I also have basil oil and a couple other sauces to go along with the sous vide steak, and we're going to do some salmon in that hearth pizza oven as well. That'll be exciting. My worst injury, I was again, it was a bike industry, but it was a freak accident. I kind of flew over the handlebars on my road bike riding home in the rain, and from one of my jobs, and gave myself a major hematoma in the groin area, and I could hardly walk. It was just so painful, and it was really to the point where, and of course it was the busiest week ever. I was working at a country club in down south in Denver, so I had to go to work, and I really struggled. It was tough. What I learned from that experience was, when you get injured, just embrace it. Just push through, do the best you can, slow down, give yourself the extra time. Don't try to work through the pain, work around it, do things that make sense. The doctor who helped me yesterday said, this is obvious advice, but if it hurts, don't do that. It really kind of started with just letting my mountain bike buddies know, hey, I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks. The doctor said 3 to 4 weeks, which in my mind is oh, I'll be riding in 10 days. And I'm not going to push it though. I might do some road riding. Certainly, it really just depends on if I feel great at work, then I think I'll feel great on my bike. I do happen to know that even just running, trying to be active, makes it feel less than spectacular. I was mowing the lawn yesterday and just pushing. Wasn't too bad, but when I got done, sure enough, it swelled up a little bit. So kind of a one-handed affair. Everything, again, just takes longer. Life takes longer when you're injured. I don't know how other people in other industries work through, in other industries work through injury. And if that's even really a concern, if you have, let's say, a desk job where you can kind of maybe sneak in, sit down, if you work remotely, and you're looking at a computer screen all day, maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it doesn't affect your performance. But I have to imagine it does, because it takes the focal point away from the task at hand, which is, quite frankly, production and work. So I'm going to ice it. I'm going to keep the Advil going. I'm going to take good care of it. And I hope by sharing my injury and my journey with you, that you can hopefully, particularly if you're a culinarian, a cook, someone who works with their hands, a mechanic, anybody who relies on their hands to pay the bills. If you can relate to this video, I'd love to hear your perspective. All right, well, thanks for joining me in the laboratory. This is an update on my injury. I think in 7 to 10 days, I'll be as good as new, at least in the kitchen.